Well, thank you. And, I want to thank Millie and Miguel for their wonderful stories, very, touching and very meaningful. I want to talk about overcoming fears and obstacles and trying to find your path. And everybody has to face that. And so I'll go back to when I was about 4.5. Now, most kids, when they eventually have time away from their family, it's usually from a day camp or a week over camp, and you make friends and have all kinds of fun activities. Well, for me, the first time I was away from my family, it lasted about 7 weeks, and it was in the hospital. Not very much fun. I had a very serious head injury. And at that time, you'd be in a room, there's no TV, there's no video games like there is today. There was a game room for a couple hours a day, but you had a lot of downtime and you had to figure out what to do with yourself, and it was kind of a painful experience. But for me, I had my crayons and my clay and my imagination. And that's one thing that can take you anywhere, and you could spend a lot of time doing that. And if you spend a lot of time doing that, eventually you'll probably get pretty good at it. So I did spend a lot of time doing that. And then when I got out of there, my family had moved to a new area, and I was about to enter kindergarten. So my father brought me into school, and there were 2 rooms that I had to choose from. One was a beautiful big room with a grand piano and tons of toys. And the other one was a small room, not even half the size, with an old upright piano, but they had clay and crayons. So my father said, "Well, Eliot, which room would you like?" Expected me to, of course, take the big one. He goes, "Well, the small one, of course." And he goes, "Well, all right, go for it." And I did. And when I went there, my first day of school, I really didn't want to be there. I just wanted to stay home and play with my brother. I didn't know anybody. Everybody was bigger than me. They seemed to know each other. And I was like odd man out. And I really didn't want to participate in anything. So Mrs. Haley was my kindergarten teacher. So wonderful. She would always encourage me, "Eliot, we have a new project. You want to try it?" And I'd be like, no, thanks. And she said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, just play with the clay and rearrange the crayons, and I'm good." And she would always, every time a new project would come, she'd always try to encourage me, but I was like, no, I'm good. I was very, very shy. And then it was around Thanksgiving. So that's, quite a bit of time. And as usual, she would come up to me and, I saw the project she was working on, and it was making a pilgrim hat. And you took a rectangular piece of paper, you folded it in half, you cut a rectangle into it, and you opened it up, and you had a perfect rectangle in a rectangle as the buckle. And I was like, wow, that is cool. And so she came up to me as usual and said, "Hey, Eliot, you want to participate?" And I said, "Okay." She goes, okay. She goes, "Here's your paper, here's your scissors, all the supplies you need." And she was so happy about it. And I was all right, I made it. Thought it came out pretty good. And she was delighted. She was so thrilled. She took my pilgrim hat and she put it on the bulletin board, and that gave me a lot of confidence, opened me up. I got a little recognition from it, and I started participating more. Well, I guess I started participating a lot, and I already was pretty good at artwork anyway. So I became the captain of the bulletin board, which was high honors. So I always liked art, and my mom encouraged me. She let me take classes in Wadsworth Atheneum, the museum there. And I was always doing artwork, working with my hands, just something I could do by myself. And it gave me a lot of confidence, and it just took you to different worlds. So um, I was always among the better art students. And when I was in the sixth grade, I was the only sixth grader that they brought into the seventh grade classes to paint the backgrounds for the plays that they would put on, which is quite the honor. And I was in the schoolyard one day, and in the sixth grade, and Mrs. Haley comes up to me, and I was with this other guy who was kind of a troublemaker. He had a reputation of so. And so she comes up to me and she goes, "Eliot." And I looked at her, I was shocked. I mean, I hadn't really talked to her in 6 years. And she goes, I said, "Mrs. Haley, you recognize me?" And she goes, "You haven't changed a bit. You look exactly the same." And then the guy, Bobby, looks at her and goes, "Mrs. Haley, do you remember me?" She goes, "Oh yeah, I remember you." So anyway, she goes to me and says, "Eliot, I have something for you." Couldn't imagine what it was. And she opens up her pocketbook and she pulls out this horse. And I'm looking at the horse. It's pretty nicely drawn and it had little rivets in it where you pulled out, bent the wires, the metal, so the legs moved on the horse. And she looked at me and she goes, "I carried this horse always in my pocketbook, and I showed it to my students every year to show them what you could accomplish if you really tried." And it really inspired them. And now I want to give the horse back to you. And I was so touched. I was looking at us going, very, really nice horse. And I remember that horse. And I always loved to draw horses because they were powerful and they ran through fields. And it was just such an expression of freedom. And I was so touched to think that she would show my work to inspire people. I was like, oh my God. It was so touching. I don't know even how to explain it, but I always liked art. And from then, I was always among the top students. And I was wondering what I wanted to do with my career. And my father told me, because I always liked chemistry, and I thought I was going to be majoring in chemistry and physics, but I still liked art too. My father said to me, you should always know the difference. It's very important to have a hobby, but you really have to know the difference between your hobby and your career, because you might love to do something, and that's important, but you also have to make a living. On the other hand, whatever you do for a living, you better really like it a lot, because you're going to be doing it for most of your waking hours for the rest of your life. And that'll be the difference between a career and just a job. And if you really love it, your life is going to be so much more rewarding. And then again, another mentor in my life, which helped direct me. So I thought about it. I said, I really love chemistry and I love physics, but I know that I would have to compete with guys that knew calculus in the seventh grade. I was never like that. I would never be that good. But art, on the other hand, I was always among the top students in my class. I loved doing it with every spare moment that I had. And I always thought that I could really be much more of an outstanding artist, and I could just do it all the time and be happy doing it. So I decided to be an artist. So when I went to school, I got turned on by a guy named Milton Glaser, one of the legendary graphic designers in America. And when he came to show his work one day in BU, Boston University, and I was so blown away because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a starving artist. When I saw his work, I was like, wow, graphic design, that's for me. That's what I went into. So I had the mentors of my parents, which were always probably the best mentors you'll ever have, and my teachers and other people who inspired me. And I became an art director. And, throughout my career, what really helped is, sure, you have to have a certain ability and an incredible drive, but you also have to have mentors to help you away, help you along and guide you. And it makes all the difference in the world. And in addition to that, it's important to be a mentor. And when I had to hire people and train them, I really tried to build up their confidence and guide them and really get them excited and to sort of find themselves. And I think being a mentor, what you get back is so incredible. It's just as great as when you have your own mentor too. So I would advise, you know, especially young people or anybody that's trying to find your path, always seek out the mentors, always seek out the help and take advantage of that, because there's always people willing to help and guide you. And then in return, help other people. You get so much back 10 times over. And I hope you all find eventually your own horse in a pocketbook. Thank you.